This little cool breeze in the morning makes the world seem right. A little cool breeze in the morning makes the world seem right.
Yeah.
You'll make the world seem right. You'll make the world seem right.
I'm Austin Drury.
I'm Robyn Korkowitz.
We play for Gypsy Wagyn band. All right.
Welcome to the van.
Yes, welcome. Welcome to the humble thee. Well, what we got here is it's a 92 conversion van. It's actually a GT series, but it's got it's kind of like a wall dock. But it's a 92, and what we have in here is pretty much a bed where we sleep. We have our medicine and our Tums and our toilet paper. We have all of our gear for the show up front. And when we're not traveling, or when we're not stationary right now,
Speakers.
we usually bring all the gear from the front. We put it in the back so we can drive, obviously. But that's pretty much what's going on in here.
Mm-hmm. We've actually been talking about doing solar and maybe outfitting the van for reals so that we'd have like the bathroom and kitchen options in here. And a lot of the folks that we met at RTR, they know how to do that kind of work and have a lot of really great advice. So we've been talking a lot about maybe outfitting the van a little bit more seriously and getting the solar panels installed and then being able to do this, you know, a little bit more than part-time. We'd like to be able to do this
Some
more
of the
full-time.
people that I've talked to, they can have their solar panels charged up by like 10 o'clock in the morning. We run our generator, you know, so this year especially, it's pretty cold. And we use our generator, but a lot of people don't like you to use your generator, which I don't understand. But, you know.
Right.
Make
We do.
everybody
We use
happy.
our generator for heat, and I know that there's some other ways to get around to make yourself warm when you're living in this kind of lifestyle. And that's one of the things I think that we've been, you know, enjoying so much about this experience is the other people that you meet and the ways that they cope with the problems that you face when you live in your vehicle full time. You know, it's such a learning experience, and everybody does things differently, including ourselves.
We're good looking and humble.
No. But anyway, so yeah, we've been thinking about it, but we don't know that this is the right van to build into that. It all depends on how solid the motor and engine is in it, and that's our big concern is making sure that we've got a strong running machine.
All of our gear that we have for our normal show fills this whole van. You know, that's why we have that 84 Coachman too that we travel around in. And well, the differences between our RV and this is our RV has a stove, it has a sink, it has a toilet, a refrigerator, it runs on propane, you can plug it in.
But it's old, and you know, like a lot of times we find ourselves playing in a city where they have a lot of RV parks we could probably pull into, but what we've found with our rig is that it's a year that's too far away from what they'll accept in a lot of the nicer RV parks. So it's just easier for us to take the van because we don't have to worry about where can we park.
Cognito
You
factor.
could just be incognito.
Stealth
is what it
and
is. It's stealthy parking.
And that's what I've learned, you know, from Bob too. He had a method of, you know, stealthy parking.
He had great ideas.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and our van does kind of blend in with like the work van look. You look at this van and to think, oh, that's probably just some work van parked on a site or whatever. And you can't see into this one, which is really nice. And that's one of the things I like, as opposed to the RV when we're staying in the Coachman. It's very clearly an RV. It's very clearly a camper. And it's not the prettiest one either, so it's, it's kind of an eyesore if you see it, off in a nicer park, or even if it was, state land or something, people notice it because it's a 1984, it's falling apart. And
another advantages that we have when we use the rig is we can fit all of our gear in there. Mm-hmm. All of our gear can fit in there. We run 8,000 watts of sound, and that's about 7 speakers. Mm-hmm. In this we can only fit one, and along with all of our belongings, but we have a lot more gear that we use
for bigger shows.
For bigger shows, because we play bars, we play casinos, we play
for campsites.
For campsites, royal families.
We just go wherever people will.
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, what do you prefer? Since you do both, you do RVing and also van life, what do you prefer?
RV. I definitely prefer RV.
Just because of the comfort of the inside.
The space you have. I like a toilet.
Yeah. I do like the toilet and everything, and I like having that option, but I like the van for the simple stealth option. Nobody looks twice at the van, like we had a nicer van before this one. It was even prettier. It had a beautiful paint job. It just looked like grandma's van, and
Interior
we could do anything
perfect.
in that. Nobody ever, nobody looked twice at that van. This one's a little older model. It's got not the most beautiful paint job.
This was an emergency purchase.
Yeah.
Because our last van, our transmission went out, and it ripped the whole transmission out. We need a car now. We're going to go buy the first car that we see that fits our gear.
Yeah.
So would you say that in the city you would prefer the van, but
absolutely,
in this kind of situation out in the desert or BLM,
absolutely,
you would prefer an RV?
Absolutely.
Yep.
For us, I like to cook dinner, and I like to think myself as a pretty good cook. And in the RV, we've got like a 3 burner stove and everything. So it's really nice. You get the real comforts of home in the bigger space. But when we go to the cities and bigger places where you just can't drive that rig around without raising eyebrows, I prefer the van.
Some of the venues that you go to, it's a snake getting in.
What's the size of your rig?
I think ours is a 26.
It is.
It's a 26.
It is a 26.
That is a little larger.
It's a little long. It's, I like it because it handles like a van. It drives just like one. But, like I said, it just depends on the situation. We have a place in Quartzsite, and we have a place in Wisconsin. And when we're between the two places, sometimes it's really hard to do the accommodations and play all the shows and stuff. Yep. So staying in the van kind of makes it a lot easier for us. Plus, this particular van, I like it because it's incognito. People aren't really looking at it like it's a conversion van and people could be living in there or anything. So we stay under the radar in it, and I like that about it.
Yeah, it definitely has its pluses, and it has its has its downfalls too.
Yeah. This van doesn't have a kitchen, so a lot of times when we do stay, we find ourselves having to think of different ways to find food, make food. We do have a little stove we didn't bring along for this trip in particular, but we have a little camp stove that we'll pull out at our camp to make dinner and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's like a tent with walls that we can put all our gear in and lock the doors.
Yep. Absolutely. Then we have the generator. We can run power. We can run heat. We can run things of that nature.
Make coffee.
We first started traveling in an '84 Coachman. And that had the stove, that had everything that you would need, a propane heater, things of that nature. But sometimes, going back to the van is always a little better. When we're not at the houses that we have or wherever we are in between our tours, because we have a place in Minnesota, or it's actually Wisconsin, and we have a place down here in Quartzsite, like she said. And when we're on tour, we like to stay in our van, closest to the shows that we're playing, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think on this last tour, we had shows that were about 1,000 miles apart. So getting from one show to the other show, we could have, when we first started doing music, we used to stay at the hotel rooms. We used to do things that way. And we found out that we ended up working for nothing because you spend all your money at rooms and getting food to go.
Food
and,
is expensive.
You know, it just ended up working out so much better for us to do things this way. The van is easier on gas than the big old coachman was, so we're able to get to our shows affordably. We don't have to pay the $80 to $100 a night to stay somewhere. You can usually creep in somewhere and sleep kind of incognito.
It was fun this time around because we had a show booked in Wisconsin, and then a few days later we were in Butte, Montana for another show, and then 3 days later after that we had a show in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. So these shows, it was a triangle that we went to. We started out in Arizona, and we had a show then, and then we went up north, and then we toured up there for a while. Then we went through Montana. If you guys haven't went through Montana in the fall, something you guys should definitely have to check out for yourself. You have to see it for yourself. But yeah, after Butte, Montana, we stayed there for a week. Then we went down to Arizona, and here we are now.
We actually got really lucky because it started getting very cold in Montana just about the time we were leaving, and I was really grateful. We came down to Arizona where it's 80 degrees instead of 30. So.
Yeah. And if you haven't been to Butte, Montana, you go through this big pass. There's mountains everywhere. That's like where the big mountain ranges start. Out there is they start in Billings, but they get really big after Butte, Montana. You have to pass through all these things. We left right in the nick of time,
We really did. This year we got very lucky. I think next year we'll probably schedule a little sooner so that we don't almost get stuck in the mountains. Well, when we first started the band, Austin and I were pretty stationary right there in Wisconsin. We played, all the bars and venues we could around our area, and what we really wanted to do was see more and do more. And that's.
And then we hit the road. We booked a bunch of shows in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and it was the first time we came to Arizona actually. And we stayed down here in 84 Coachman, and that was really our first taste of life on the road, staying at campgrounds and things of that nature. And then we went back and we did it again up in Minnesota, and we just like when we're out here, it feels like we can do what we want.
It does. And one of the things we notice is, if we don't work, if we aren't booking our band, we don't have any money. So, it's very important to really conserve money when we can, and doing things this way made it possible for us to travel and tour all these other states. People know us from all over the country now because we were able to get there. And doing things this way, if we would have tried staying in motels and booking ourselves that way, we would have flopped right away. We couldn't have done it financially, so this makes it affordable for us.
Absolutely. And we did, we've done the road thing, but then we ended up finding main bases where we had the most work, had the most shows, whether it's casinos, bigger venues, bars, things of that nature. So we decided to, we ended up getting a little trailer down here, and we got a trailer up there, and it works out that way because we're not full-timers. We're absolutely not full-timers.
We end up being more part-time this way, which is kind of nice when you're starting. I think,
you can
because
learn and
we don't.
meet people.
We weren't prepared to do the full-on, and coming to the RTR, we've met people that have been doing this for some time, and it's such a learning experience for us, and we're going to be able to do it a lot more full-time because of the connections we made here and the people that are teaching us how that they do it.
Absolutely.
This is actually our first RTR. We actually had to look up the RTR on YouTube, and that's where we were introduced to Bob and started learning about all of this Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, which is what RTR stands for. Another thing we had to look up, and so this is our first year.
We got out here, and it's a little different. People will be people always, but I've learned that there's not one way to do anything.
Right.
There's different perspectives of which angles people go at.
You get a good idea, and Bob is a really good. He does great on the YouTube videos because he really explains things really simply and down to earth, and kind of just the way his character is anyway. Who he is really down to earth, but you know, when you get your actual hands on the ground and you feel the atmosphere, it is different. It's different than you've researched. You can't
we've
read
traveled
about
down
it.
here and we've watched, you know, this isn't our first time in the desert, but we've been here for, you know, the summer where nobody's here, and we've been here when there's a bunch of people here, so we can watch the people come and go. And what I've learned is, you know, I kind of knew a little bit about it, but this is the first one that I've actually went to where people are camping out this close together, and, you know, things of that, like that.
We were surprised that so many people knew each other from the original RTRs, and how many people keep in touch. And to me, that's kind of neat, because you get that sense of community. And, you know, you may be off in your van life living your nomadic living wherever that may lead you, but everybody seems to come back and gather and get that base community going, and you rekindle those friendships. And I think that makes the culture in itself very unique and very special. Makes me excited to be invited to be a part of it.
If there's any advice that I'd give to somebody their first time or just first time in general traveling, get AAA. AAA is the best thing you can get when you're a full-time traveler. You can break down, you can have a blowout on your tire, you could, you know, anything could go wrong, and they can literally tow you right where, you know, we have 5 tows per year at 100 miles per tow.
Right, and that's saved us more times than we can count.
You can get up to like 500 miles of where you need to go by if you use the tows per year, you know.
This van isn't even our original van. We actually had 2 other vans before this one. So we're kind of used to driving maybe older rigs. You might have some trouble with them, and that's sort of our history. So having a little bit, just that one little ace in the hold is good to know that, you know, go ahead and break down. Somebody's going to come get you, pull you out of the ditch, give you a tire, bring you gas, whatever problems you have on the road. And that has saved us. I can't even tell you how many times.
That's the advice that I'd give.
That's the
best
guys out here advice. The second best advice, I think, is make sure you got good tires. Don't be running your rig on old tires. Don't buy used tires. I'm a firm believer in good rubber on the ground, because
cover your tires too.
You know,
because the desert does things to rubber. Your
tires are bringing you everywhere. You got to think about how far these things are going to take you. It's better to just spend the money and get the good tires right off the bat. That's my personal opinion, because I don't know. It's
absolutely
the best possible advice.
I'm in the same rig as you. We'd like to eventually go full time and everything, but mainly it's just for the means of having somewhere to stay when we're out on the road. And we do have a place in Quartzsite. We have a place up in Wisconsin, and that accommodates, you know, the times that we're not on the road, when we want, you know, just to go back to, you know, where we go.
Sticks and bricks. This is Gypsy Wagyn.
Thanks for stopping by. 3, 4.
Lights down, let the door swing open. Turn the lights down, let the wind roll in. A little cool breeze in the morning makes the world seem right. A little cool breeze in the morning makes the world seem right. A little cool breeze in the morning makes the world seem